let everybody sit and chit chat for a few minutes while we get more people coming in, and then we'll start. Amy, why don't you kind of talk a little bit about Jonathan and let us know a little bit about him?
Well, Jonathan, I met him when I got into this industry. I was looking around, what can I do in my city? And I found the First Friday Network. And it's a San Antonio thing. I don't know, is it everywhere? Is there a First Friday for senior care everywhere?
No, it's only in San Antonio.
It's only in San Antonio. So he was president at the time, and you could tell he liked to do public speaking because he's very good at it. And I liked listening to him. And so that's where I first was introduced to him. But when I found out that he does fall prevention, I was like, oh, wow, that's really neat. I need to learn more about it. And so I'm so glad he can join us.
Well, I'm happy to be here. Thank you very much. It's a very nice introduction.
Thank you for coming. We do have a couple people already on Facebook Live, so if you want to get started, we might as well.
So, Jonathan, we'd love to hear a little bit about you and how you got started, and what you're doing today, because you've got a lot of tricks up your sleeve here in fall prevention, but what you've been doing has been amazing and at the forefront of what's going on. So give us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, yeah, I'll give you a brief professional history. So within my professional career, I worked as a rehab charge nurse for 8 years straight. And during that time, I saw too many times I would see someone, especially this woman named Marilyn. She came in with a broken humerus bone on her arm and recovered quickly, went back home just like brand new. And then within 3 months, she was right back in the facility. But this time she had broken her femur, and it was much worse. And then she ended up kind of having complications in the recovery process. And I could see that because of the pain and the whole process and it taking so long, she really just lost the gusto that she had before into getting back home. And unfortunately, she didn't have any family that was close by that could come in and be that support for her. So we tried to be that, but she ended up just deteriorating to where she had to live in that facility, for the rest of her time. And I was thinking, man, I wish that she could have done something a little bit different so that she could have lived on her own a bit longer and not have to go through that much pain from what she went through. And so I saw that too many times. And then I finally said, you know what, I'm going to head out and I'm going to try to get people to stay at home and make sure they don't fall down, because that's the most likely reason they're going to have to be admitted into a facility is through a fall. And so I thought, well, let me get out there and let me work with people so that we can do simple things in order to help them prevent falling. And so after I left doing that, I spent the next it was about 9 months straight of reading every single study on fall prevention, which there's about 173 of them. So I read all of those studies, and then based on my experience within the facilities, I put together a training program. And that whole process took about 2 years developing that training program. Once I developed it, then I started working on the weekends as a charge nurse and implementing these things on a smaller scale just to make sure that they worked. And they did, and that was great. And during the week, and since then, during the week, I've been working with individuals as a senior fitness trainer on fall prevention techniques, which is very simple exercises. It's about a dozen seated exercises. And right now, I only have one client who has continued to fall regularly after I've started working with them. So I have very good no fall success rate. And so
well, it's interesting you say that, Jonathan, because the statistics on falls, especially in a home, is huge. But when you couple a fall with going into a rehab and actually going back home, it gets grim. It really does on those statistics.
Yeah, it's very tough. The transition.
what stage do you see your patients and your clients at? Are they all different stages? Do you have, is it all one-on-one?
It is all one-on-one, and they're at many different stages. Some are more mobile than others. Some still go get their own groceries and do everything themselves. They do their own taxes and everything. Whereas I think the oldest, I have 3 clients in their 90s who all have pretty advanced dementia. And that's one thing that I was just at a facility the other day and I said, oh yeah, well, I work with people who have dementia and Alzheimer's. And she goes, oh, well, how do you even do that? And I go, well, my nursing experience and how you communicate with people is absolutely the most important part of that. And then she goes, yeah, but how do you teach them to not fall down? And I said, well, with dementia, since they're not able to follow commands or remember to use the grab bar, the best and the only thing we can really do is just make sure they're strong enough so that when they do get up, they don't just immediately fall. And I had about a year ago, I started with a man and a woman. He was 88, she was 95. And I started with them within a week of each other. And they both could not follow, I mean, they could follow commands, but they couldn't remember safety things. Or like, for instance, with her, I would say, how are you doing this morning? And she'd go, I don't know. And I go, okay, that's good. Well, as long as you're not in pain, that's okay. Let's try to move around. And with as little as 3 times a week, I would have her stand up 5 to 10 times. I would have her try to balance without holding on. And then I would have her try to walk with me right there with her. And with both of those people, the man and the woman, they both had, before I started with them, they were falling almost every single day. And since then, I still work with them, luckily, and they haven't had a fall since. And it's just because they're able to support themselves whenever they do get up, because it happened about 3 weeks after I started with both of them. I got a call from the facility, and then another one, I went by there and they said, oh, you wouldn't believe, we saw them walking down the hallway and we were able to go and grab their arm and just walk with them. And I was like, good, that's why I'm here. It's just to make them strong enough to where if they do get up, they can support their own weight. So yeah, I work with about a dozen individuals right now, one-on-one.
So it's mostly about strength and of course balance.
Yes, that is exactly it. It is strength and balance.
Yeah, and attention. How do you talk to them about paying attention, or how they move? You had one of the podcasts talking about not reaching for more than you can do and knowing what your limits are, even when you're trying to improve.
Well, with dementia, it's more of getting them in a habit of like guiding them to do things the safer way, rather than trying to tell them to remember, which I do every single time. All right, we're going to do this, and it's for this. Are you ready? Let's go. And so as far as holding on to something, yes. As far as having a safety process to where even if I'm not there, I hope that they just automatically go to that process. So yeah, that's very important. But yeah, communication is still very, very, very important. And as far as attention goes, it's more difficult right whenever I start with someone than as we get along. But right whenever I start with someone, it is paramount to keep their attention, because I see dementia and Alzheimer's as, in a very simple term, it is kind of like advanced attention deficit. So for instance, when I start working with someone, I am constantly talking, keeping their attention for about as long as I can, asking them questions about themselves, seeing how far back their memory goes, seeing what they can remember, and trying to keep them engaged for as long as possible. And then I'll start to see their eyes wander off, and then I'll go, okay, now I know they're at about, 40 seconds. And then I'll work on that to try to get them to talk more, try to communicate more. Yeah, communication is so important. so important within this process, because the more you can hold their attention, the longer y'all can work together, and the more effective things can get done. Yeah.
It's interesting how you related to an attention deficit.
Well,
I was like,
I
I, because I think a lot of us can understand that relationship
yeah,
and
well, I was diagnosed with
connect it.
severe attention deficit disorder, but it wasn't until I was in college already. And the doctor had said, "How did you get into college?" And I was like, "Well, it's taken a lot of work, and I have to spend about 8 hours a day in the library just getting, this stuff done because I get distracted, but I found a way to do it."
So, Jonathan, that brings me back to the question of your passion is amazing in this field, but how did you get this passion? Where did it come from? Like, what
Oh,
your upbringing, and how
yeah.
did you get here? Because that's a fascinating story that you have.
Well, like most people, I was shaped by my childhood. So my childhood experiences led me to do what I am doing right now. My mother was diagnosed with Huntington's disease back in 1992, I believe, and that disease progressed. And with that disease, Huntington's is kind of like, and for the layman, it's kind of like Parkinson's and Alzheimer's at the same time. And it starts at varying ages depending on who you inherited it from. And so for my mother, she started to have a lot of uncoordination, and I had to be there to help her. And then if no one was there, she would have a fall. And I remember she had a lot of falls leading up to this one time where she lost her balance and broke through the railing of the second floor of my grandparents' house, and then landed on the armchair of the couch down in the living room. And she had broken her back in 3 places. And at that same time, they discovered, whenever she went to the hospital, they discovered that she had stage 3 breast cancer. So so she pretty much had to lie in a nursing home bed for the last 2 years of her life. And where I get my nursing compassion and passion is seeing what she had to go through after having a fall. And then also I was essentially taught by my father how to take care of someone, because every day we get off the bus, get right into the car, go to the nursing home, stay there until about 9 p.m. at night, Monday through Friday, and then all day Saturday, all day Sunday for those 2 years. And I saw my father just diligently taking care of her, and I was just like, okay, all right, that's how you take care of someone. All right. And so once I started working in nursing homes as a nurse, I started to see how falls, were causing the same thing that I saw as a child. And I thought, something can be done about this. Let's try to keep people at home. Let's try to keep people safe. And so that's where it started, is my mother having a really bad fall and having to go through terrible things. And I want to try to make sure that no one has to go through those things if they have the resources, or if we can get the information out there and they can use it in order to stay safer. Yeah.
So when you walk into a client's house for the very first time, let's say they just had a fall, the discharge nurse was like, okay, rehab, or you can financially afford it and you can go home and rehab at home. You're the person that I'm going to call up and say, hey, my mom's had a fall. I need you to come into the house to help her. How do you approach that? What do you do? Where do you come in and start working, and how does that look to somebody who's never experienced something?
Yeah. Well, it's relatively simple. If I hear that they've had a fall for whatever reason, and I need to go in and do an evaluation, so I'll go in and do an evaluation. And what that looks like for me is a pretty simple questionnaire of whether or not, like, the first thing I'll usually ask is to get them started on the right foot. So I'll say, all right, have you used PT and OT yet? Can you get that? can you go ahead and like, do you have the ability to qualify for it? And if you do, that's a good place to start. But also, sometimes that can take a couple weeks. And with falls, it's kind of a time thing. So it's important to get them. So what I will do within an evaluation is my criteria is essentially if they can follow commands, I can help. And if they don't have pain, because that's another thing. Yeah, pain is something it's a whole nother ball game if someone has a lot of pain whenever they move. But if they don't have pain and they're able to follow commands and they're on board with this and they understand the risks, because I will tell them right away, I'll say, listen, it doesn't look good. Once you've fallen, you're at a really high risk for the next 30 days. So I just want to give you, and sometimes I'll give them different scenarios based on what life might look like, just to make them aware. Because a lot of people that go, oh yeah, I fell, but it's nothing. And I always, I've learned that falling is a extremely traumatic experience. And depending on the person, they will try to deflect and they will try to act like it's not a traumatic experience, just like anything else in life. And so a lot of times whenever I'll go in there, knowing that they've already had a fall, I say, so tell me about your last fall. Oh, it was nothing. And I go, no, it's okay. You can talk to me about this. And they say, well, it was just over in the living room. And I say, okay, so can you tell me what you remember about it? And then they start to brighten, and then you can see them like go back there in their mind where they've been avoiding and they've been just trying to stay away from it because it was a traumatic experience and they don't want to relive that. But
elephant in the room.
Yeah, yeah. And so they describe their fall to me. And then I try to ask as many questions, as many details about what led up to it that they can remember. And in doing so, they realize the mistake, and I can usually say, oh, well, just so you know, if you ignore it, if you don't talk about it, it's going to happen again. But if we can talk about it, then we can start to get a plan together to make sure that that doesn't happen again. So I will give you the tools in order to make sure that that doesn't happen again. So I usually bring them, information packets, an exercise program thing, a sheet of just different exercises that they can do on their own. And I say, hey, if you can do this on your own, go for it. More power to you. But if you need someone to just guide you a little bit, because a lot of my clients will go, oh, thank you so much, I couldn't have done. And I go, no, you're the one doing the work. I am literally just giving you little guideposts. That's it. I'll tell you simple exercises. I'll get you in a little routine. I'll watch you as you go to the bathroom. What's your process? Do you have a routine? I'll watch you as you go to bed. How do you transfer if they're in a wheelchair? How do you transfer from the wheelchair to the bed? Let's work on these things. It's about the details. But yeah, so that's what I do whenever I go in and I evaluate a client. It's kind of dependent on their needs, their personality, their family. I always ask family to be there. And whenever I work with people, if family is there while I'm working with them, even better, because I'll tell the family, listen, hey, y'all can do this stuff. You've watched me enough. You can do this on your own. And if y'all can keep that up and maintain it, if money is a problem or something like that, then y'all can do this on your own. And so I try to give them every opportunity to find whatever avenue is best for them.
So tell us about this new podcast your podcast that you do. A little bit more about that. Yeah.
Well, the podcast,
the information that you're doing.
Yeah, I wanted to give like bite-sized information of all the stuff that of different aspects of fall prevention, so that you can look at a topic and within 10 minutes you can get what you need to know. Because what I found out is that the more complex something is doesn't necessarily make it more digestible. So I try to make things as simple as possible, and I try to put a relatable story that I've seen in real life. And so with the podcast, the Senior Start Fall Prevention podcast is really just there for tips. It is there to give someone, if you want a little tip on something, you can have it. But luckily, I have some really great nurses and caregivers and CNAs that I've worked with, and I'm going to start doing a series in a couple months that's going to be coming out, and that's going to be a lot of fun, where we talk about the beautiful stories that we've seen within these communities, because there's a lot of negative things about nursing homes and assisted living facilities, but I've seen some absolutely beautiful things. I've seen people fall in love. I've seen people just be reborn within themselves. I've seen people go through like therapy and like overcome childhood traumas. I've seen people forgive their passed away parents, in these later stages of life. And it's what I realized, it's never too late. And there's a lot of beautiful things that have happened. So that's going to be a segment of the podcast where I bring in someone and they tell a beautiful story. So yeah.
That is great. I like that.
It's fun.
So do you mostly see people after they've been in the hospital, or do you come in to prevent the trip to the hospital? And
It's a bit of both. It just depends.
What would you say to someone? I mean, my father has fallen quite a bit, so this isn't me, but someone who's got aging parents and they're concerned. How do they approach them, and how do we prepare that conversation, or how do we prepare our parents?
Oh yeah, that's a tough one. That is a tough one.
I said, Jonathan, I call this the elephant in the room, because nobody wants to talk about it or discuss it with either their parents or with themselves.
Well, like you said, because my father,
it's hard.
He didn't tell anybody. Oh, it was no big deal. It was nothing. Well, it turned into something,
Yeah. Oh no, I know that because my father, I started doing fall prevention training, and then about a year after that, he had a fall and broke his arm. And I went in, and I had already told him everything that he needed to be doing. And I went in there and I said, "All right, Pop, are you going to learn? Are you going to learn your lesson?" And he goes, "Yeah, I guess so." On his cast, I actually just wrote fall number 1. And I said, "It says number 1 because that's your first. That's caused a moderate to severe injury. And it's up to you on whether or not you're going to have a number 2 or a number 3. So either you can learn from this or you cannot, and it's going to be worse next time, more likely." So it's a tough one, but I will say that if you have someone who is or if you know someone who's a physical therapist or an occupational therapist, or who is a medical professional that knows falls and knows what to do and how to teach people how to not fall, it is much more effective to have that person tell the parents. So for instance, you wouldn't believe how many times I've worked with someone and told a client what to do, and the family will come to me afterwards and go, "You know what makes me so mad? I've told them that so many times and they just don't listen." And I go, "Well, it's because you're family and
the kids,
your family, you're the kids. They're not going to listen to you." But a third party, it's kind of like in facility trainings, within that those studies that I read, it turns out that a third party company who does a training is more effective than if it's in-house. Not by a whole lot, but it is more effective. And I was like, "Oh, okay, well, yeah."
Objectivity.
Yeah. And so that would, if you know someone who can talk to them, that's outside the family, again, because we tend to not listen to our family as much as we would a professional who's coming in and who is serious about this type of stuff. So yeah, that's what I'll recommend.
That's great. People like us.
Yes, exactly. People just like y'all.
Well, we keep interrupting you. I feel like maybe you were going on a certain path and we keep asking you questions. Was there?
Oh, no, it's no problem at all. It goes with the attention deficit pretty well, so don't worry. But I would like to kind of go over some of the home safety evaluation that I do for people, and just with the recommendations. It shouldn't take too long, but just so if you want to write this down, this is the, you know, the bread and butter of external risk factors, because within the realm of fall prevention, as we all know, there are external risk factors, which is stuff that are outside our body, and then internal risk factors, which is like high blood pressure or orthostatic hypotension or dementia or something that's internal. So I would like to go over the external risk factors relatively quickly. So what I'll do first is I'll tell you what 3 things that you need to go buy, because these are physical things. And these 3 things you can use if needed. And the first thing is little plug-in night lights, which are wonderful. I actually bought my last home because they had those outlets that had the lights underneath them. And I was like, "Oh, you have those?" And he was like, "Yeah." And I go, "I'll take it." I love the house so much. But yeah, so those little plug-in night lights, and then you can get the ones that save a lot of energy by only coming on whenever there's not enough light in the room. So they'll only come on at that time. And then another good thing is double-sided tape for the people who are not ready to get rid of their rugs. And that is too many people. No, I'm not getting rid of that. And then especially in the kitchen. No. I need something to stand on over the sink, and that's fine. But the double-sided tape will help keep those down, because it's not necessary. It's what trips you up usually is accidentally kicking the rug up to where it flips up over, and now it's at a little higher height than what you're used to stepping over, and then you'll step on one part of the rug, and then the other foot will go underneath the other part of the rug, and then you fall down. So the double-sided tape for taping down rugs is great.
And now you're not talking about the big area rugs at all, just the small ones?
So both. I always recommend both, because I've seen the big ones. Some of the big ones are pretty thin, and then some of the big ones, if they're thinner, the ends will actually start to curl up if they're really old, or if they're washed frequently, something like that. So I'd recommend it on both, just in case. And then fluorescent tape. So the fluorescent tape I put on the steps facing outwards of any variations in altitude or any variations in height. So some people that I've worked with have a little step, like a little transition, like a 1-inch step, or regular step. If you have a series of stairs, I put a piece of fluorescent tape on the front side of the step so that whenever you're approaching it, it's very obvious where that step is. So those are the 3 things that I usually either provide to clients or recommend that they get on their own. And then with those things, you can really help. I mean, someone can really easily modify their home just a little bit. Those are the things that aren't permanently changeable.
And by the way, Jonathan, I love it because they're easily done, but number one, they're not noticeable. They're little things that people wouldn't notice, but they're inexpensive to do.
Oh, inexpensive.
They don't, because as we all know, the older we get, that budget is only about this big. So you really have to spread it thin among what am I going to choose to do first, or what am I going to choose to start with if you're on a budget. And so I like that it's something that's so simple and easy as those 3 things to start off with that are inexpensive and easy to do.
Yeah, they've helped. They've helped a lot of people that I know, especially those night lights. Those night lights are a lifesaver at nighttime. Whenever they're getting up to go to the bathroom, That's probably the most important spot that you can put them in, is between the bed and the bathroom.
Jonathan, I've had people take them out because they think they are too bright. They don't like them. They wake them up too much, or it's too the outlet kind of on their eye level is just.
Well, see, you want to get ones that oh, do I have some? No, I don't have my little box here, but ones you should get ones that are pointed downwards, so they
Yeah, like
only
on the
light up.
outlet.
Yeah. So like on the outlet, the only ones that I get for people are the ones that are only facing towards the floor. So they're not coming up and lighting up the whole room. And they're also not so bright so that they distract. So you almost want to get like a yellow light one rather than a bright white, so that it's a little more subtle. If they're having that complaint, then I would get them the ones that are facing downwards and more of a yellow tint rather than a bright white tint.
Pretty good details there. And you mentioned you have a little box of gadgets that you show at your presentations. Well, we're all forming our own little boxes for presentations too. So those are the top 3 that you have with you, or what else do you have in your box?
The other thing in my box is a resistance band, a little circular resistance band, because I also provide people with these 12 seated exercises that they can do at home on their own from a chair. And if they're too easy for you, there's a whole nother series of how you can use the resistance band to make it a little bit more difficult. So yeah, the resistance band, I love it. Let's see here. So just to run through a quick list, as far as the floors go, whenever doing a home evaluation, just make sure you don't have to walk around furniture. If you can have as the crow flies, or just a straight path to wherever you need to go, not have to walk around any furniture, that helps a whole lot. And then if you have rugs, remove them. And if they won't remove them, double-sided tape really helps. And then papers, books, towels, shoes, magazines, or just clutter. You know, clutter is a big thing that can cause a whole lot of risks. But yeah, pick those things up. And then so wires or cords, with all of our electronics nowadays, if you have wires or cords that are coming out, what you want to do is you want to try to get some, like if you can get that black electrical tape, which you don't even have to have, but that black electrical tape to put all the cords together so that they're not all strewn about, because you know they get all wiry. But if not, then you can always have an electrician come in. If wires are a problem, you can always just call an electrician and they can put in another outlet that's a little closer to where you need to be. So that's a nice, simple shortcut thing, and doesn't cost too much. All right, so for stairs and steps, is there clutter? And also, if the steps are broken or uneven, that's a risk as well. And then make sure the stairs are well lit. And if they're not well lit, you know, replace the light bulb. Light bulbs are a big thing. Let's see here. And then also, if the if the stairs have carpet, it's important to check to make sure the carpet is actually secure and not loose. And then also, if they have wooden stairs, there is like non-slip rubber treads that you can put on the stairs to make them to where if they're wearing socks, they won't slip on the wooden stairs. So that non-slip rubber treads are good. And then also the handrails for the stairs, make sure that they're not loose or broken or anything like that, so they have a good firm grip in order to hold on. And then let's see here. Within the kitchen area, if you don't need the space in the high shelves, like make sure that everything is within reach, that you don't have to get up onto stairs for or reach up really high for. So bringing stuff down, like if you frequently use pots and pans, it's better to put them in a lower place rather than having them up on top of the refrigerator or up in the higher cabinets. If you're using a step stool, make sure to get one that has a handrail in front, so that whenever you step up onto it, grab, you have somewhere to grab.
I gotta get one of those.
Yeah.
I didn't know they had them. You know, my mother's using a step stool. There's nothing. You know, she's like, you know, so that's not good.
No, it's not. The ones, they're usually just 2 steps. Sometimes there's a 3-step one, but you can find ones that are like a 2-step one, which should be all you need, and it has just a big metal rail that goes straight up from it. So yeah.
Oh, great. Yeah. See, that's the thing. I mean, if people knew what the solutions were so simple,
Mhm.
they would take care of it. But you know, they're walking around with rickety handrails because they're like, I don't know how to fix this, or this thing about what did you say about, you know, just ask an electrician to move the outlet. Oh, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
here's the simple fix. You know, I just think this is the way the house is built. I can't change. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of this stuff, I mean, I hope that this information gets out to the public, just because it's very much like, you don't know what you don't know, and the more you know, and sometimes you're like, oh, of course that's the solution. So yeah, just like that. And within the bathroom area, we have you know, make sure it's dry. You know, wetness is fall risk, and so there's a non-slip rubber mats that you can put on the actual bathroom floor, and then also some of those self-stick strips that are grip strips and mats that go into showers and bathtubs. Those are really helpful. I've fallen down a couple times in the shower already in my lifetime, so I know if I'm falling down, it's a big risk for someone who, especially if they have to step into the bathtub or into the shower, you know, if they have something to step over and into, that's really important. And then, of course, in the bathrooms, grab bars. Grab bars are great. There's a couple different companies that do it in our city in San Antonio. So there are actually grab bar, like there's certified technicians within that. So they, yeah, they're licensed and professionally obligated to put them in securely. And then a lot of times, if you ask, so let's say, for instance, you're on home health, or if you get home health or hospice or something like that, and you don't have grab bars, a lot of times the home health or hospice will just go ahead and throw it in and just provide you with a grab bar. I've seen that multiple times where, oh no, yeah, if they need something, we'll get it for them. And I'm just like, oh, love it, love it. So yeah, that's really helpful. So within the bathroom, is the light near the bed hard to reach? Now, this is a rule. The rule that I have within my training program, as far as things that are close to reach, is 20 inches. So it needs to be 20 inches from where their body is. And so you want to keep things within reach, because whenever you reach, you get yourself out of your center of balance, you get yourself off completely. So make sure the lamp is close to the bed where it's easy to reach. Make sure their water, if they have bedside water, their telephone, everything is right next to them to where it's easy to reach. So yeah, 20 inches is my measurement. And then also, is the path from the bed to the bathroom dark? If not, great. But if it is, install an outlet night light. Sometimes I've seen people to where they can get out of bed and their bathroom door is right next to them. And what they've done is, on the opposite side, there's a lot of times there's an outlet right on the opposite side to where it's lighting up the pathway for them, but it's not necessarily shining into the bedroom. But yeah, make sure the pathway to the bathroom is well lit. And that's pretty much a good start for the home evaluation and what you can do to your home to make sure you can do the things. So what I would say to anyone who's looking to implement these things is that, you know, you may say, oh, well, this is a lot of stuff, or this is whatever. If you're doing this with your family and your parent, it'd be a great idea to go ahead and print out the CDC's check for safety, home fall prevention checklist for older adults. So you can print this thing out. It's a PDF. And what would be good is if you would go through the house with them. You know, it's important that they know all of these same things that you've learned, and that way you can do something together. It's not so active, and then they can argue with you about things like, I'm not putting in a night light. No, I'm not doing that. I'm not using a walker. I don't want to use that, you know, that kind of stuff. But it's good to start the conversation because there you go. That's it. Well done. Thank you so much. And so that's what I say. Start the conversation.
I'm gonna I shared the link here for that safety brochure that you mentioned. I hope that's the right link. And I'll share it on Facebook Live. We've got about 7 to 10 people on Facebook Live. And so we'll see if
That's the right one.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the right one. Well done. So
Thank
quick.
you.
Get the pacifiers that are like, oh yes, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. And they don't do it.
Yeah.
Or you can fix it, but it's going to go right back the way it was.
Yeah, see, that's one of the hardest, one of the hardest things to learn within my process of working with people is how do you get someone who's never exercised in their life to start an exercise program for their own safety.
Well, did it work for your father when you scared him? Did the fear tactic work?
Yeah, he hasn't fallen since, but you know, he's one of those bare minimum kind of guys. Like, oh yeah, I took a walk twice this week. I'm like, okay, cool. All right, well, that's a start. Oh, well, you know, I walk until I can't. Okay, okay. Just go to the extreme twice a week and that's enough for you. But yeah, no, he hasn't fallen since, so that's good. But yeah, changing people's so one thing that I do is whenever I'm telling people about these exercises that are all seated and they're simple, I don't call them exercises. I call them movements. I go, okay, all we're gonna do is do a couple movements, okay? I just wanna see if you can do something. Can you scoot forward in your chair a little bit? Get your back off the back of the chair. And all we're gonna do real quick is I just want you to lift up your knee. Just lift it up. Okay, is that hard? No, okay. Let's do that a few times, okay? Just go, 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 go. And then we get done, I go, did that hurt? I go, no. I go, okay, great, this is easy. And then slowly, we progressively do a little bit more, but each time they do more, it's celebrated. Oh, great, this is fantastic. Do you know what you just did? You know, that kind of thing. And then it usually takes a while before someone is sore from my process, but after, if they do ever have soreness, I go, all right, now listen, I want you to know something. Soreness should be celebrated because when you're sore, that means the next time I see you, you're going to be a little bit stronger. So it's within celebrating the good things. It's not about tearing people down for the bad things. It's about celebrating the good things and encouraging those good behaviors, because that's more effective than, you know, the discouragement or fear-based stuff. So yeah. Yes.
Well, if anybody has any personal experiences with the falls, the things that might have helped, or specific issues, just let us know. Seems like we have the expert right here.
Well, I don't know about expert, but I mean, I try. I'm always learning, so there's always something new. and I'm just trying to learn and just try to do my best at giving people good information that they'll use.
And you say you're in the San Antonio area and you do a lot of this in person, and so do you go into, and you work in the facilities and the senior, do you go to the senior care centers and give like a little info thing to just the general public, or do you do that too?
Yeah, I'm pretty much on call for in services and training presentations, things like that, for different facilities around around this area. And I love doing those things, but it all just depends on what the facility needs. So whenever I start working with someone who's in a new facility, so I'm in 4 different facilities right now, or I have clients in 4 different facilities. And so within those facilities, I've developed a really good relationship with the management staff. So whenever I see that there's something wrong, because once I start working with a client, I'm my client's advocate. So if I see something wrong, I know these facilities well enough to where I know exactly who to go to. And I say, hey, listen, what is your wheelchair cleaning schedule? And they'll go, what are you talking about? And I go, they've had a dirty wheelchair, which is causing them to have a harder time getting down the hall because their wheelchair is dirty. So what's the schedule? Well, actually, I don't know if we have one. Well, here, let me show you what I've done before. So here you go. And then I just walk away, so that I'm not just, I'm not trying to break them down. I'm trying to help them. And so I'm trying to make their job easier for them. And the only way to make their job easier is if more people are happy. So I try to help in those ways. Yeah.
I have some.
Sorry, Amy, go on.
No, I was going to say I have one in my mind of a dog leash by the front door, because that's where they hook them up to let them run out to the bathroom, and then it just pulls. And so I'm like, okay, I think we could use a retractable dog leash for this little thing right here. So
yeah, that's a good.
Get that to stick.
I saw a woman walking a Labrador, and she was one of my client's wives, and that was today. She was walking a Labrador, and this Labrador was not hers, but someone was like, oh no, you can take it for a walk. And she was like being pulled, and I was like, oh my goodness. And I was like, let me take the dog. And then she was like, no, I got it. And I was just like, I cannot let you continue stumbling and
What kind of
almost
shoes was
falling.
she wearing?
Sandals.
Oh no,
Open-toed
bad.
shoes. Exactly. I was like, this is a disaster waiting to happen. So it's important to intervene. And whenever you see something,
say something.
say something. Yeah, do something. That's a lot of what I tell facilities. Like, hey, just look out. Just look out. If you see someone that's a little unsteady, it's okay to just go up and be like, hey, do you need a hand? And just grab onto their
okay,
arm.
even if you offend them, it's okay. Even if they say no.
Yeah, it's fine. It's better to offend than to let them, be offended by the floor, themselves.
We have a nice compliment from Deborah saying great information, like how to approach people and all safety recommendations. So that's good, because you really packed this with a lot of good safety recommendations.
Great.
Yeah,
Great.
the big list of things to look for and things to buy and simple things to get you started.
Yeah, and everybody's different, so just
I think another good approach is to say, how would you like me to save you some money there? Because you can spend a whole lot of money on rehab and hospital, medical, whatever, or you can save time and money.
Yeah, I mean,
money always talk.
That's the thing, is it's good to have statistics and numbers available. So like, for instance, within Bexar County, which is the San Antonio surrounding area, a moderate to severe fall that leads to an injury that someone has to go to the hospital for, on average costs the person $11,000. And then if they need any kind of surgery, it's 33. It's the average cost of like a surgery for someone who's over 65, $33,000. So it's important to let them know, like, hey, you can prevent yourself from having to do that, because falls are absolutely 100% preventable. Well, I won't say 100%, but most of the time you can do something about and it can save you a lot of money.
Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. I know both, Eve, Amy, and myself, and along with yourself, education is power. And, all these little nuggets that you taught us tonight, and that you, what to look for, the easy fixes, simple fixes, even the hard conversations. Every one of us struggles with it at some point. We all kind of, have a little something with it. So it's nice when you can hear from somebody that's a professional that's able to talk to you about, what's the other flip side of it, and and to see how to advocate, not to how to advocate, but what to look for, because it's something. Eve, Amy, do you have anything to say?
No, I'm just very impressed, and I know that you have programs that you've created that are now operating on by themselves, right? And it's just in Texas, or do you have you published sort of any kind of a textbook or any kind of a publication of this kind that we could look up or purchase?
Not yet. So the ones that I have the recordings for that'll be available for certain types of trainings and things like that will be available later. But right now, it's just the fall prevention for healthcare for professionals that has been designed for nursing homes or nursing and rehab facilities. And then I have another training program for assisted living facilities, and then another training program for independent living facilities. And then there's a whole bunch of modifications for a whole bunch of different types of places as well. So yeah, that's but those are all in person. It's very effective in person.
Sounds like it. Yes. Thank you very much for coming.
Well, thank you all so much.
And
for
you're
having
willing
me.
to travel, right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I love travel.
And another comment from Facebook, another compliment from Deborah, the word movements instead of exercise. It's fantastic. It's a breakthrough. Really, it is. I mean,
Well,
little things, like you're saying,
it is
a really
those
good
little
thing
things
to have in our minds to help us deal with the people that we have to deal with. And
Yeah,
ourselves,
well,
I guess. Yeah.
yeah,
Anyway.
and ourselves. That's, you got to start somewhere, but yeah,
Thank
you
you
all so
for
much for having
joining.
me.
Yeah,
really
no,
appreciate
thank you. I appreciate
Jonathan,
it.
thank you.
So for myself, Eve and Amy, thank you for everybody out there for joining us and for taking the time to talk to us about your passion. I love everything that you discussed with us, and I appreciate it. Nancy, thank you for joining us here on Zoom.
Emily, thanks to everybody on Facebook.
And on Facebook.
Terry.
We'll have the link live to this recording tomorrow on YouTube.
And we'll send it along to you, Jonathan.
Yeah.
If you would like to check it out. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Thank
Thanks,
you all for having
everybody.
me. I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Have a good evening.